Now, as you might have picked up on, my body language is coloring what I'm saying. So if I say, actually, I'm really good at this. If I say it like that, you might actually believe me. But if I say, yeah, I'm really good at this, do you believe me? Probably not. You're probably getting the opposite message of what I'm trying to convey, right? Simply by the way I'm coloring it. That's communication skills. It's getting them to understand what you want them to understand. And that's a combination not only of what you say, but how you say it. And, eye contact, body language, all that kind of stuff. If I show up dressed in sweatpants and a white vest with food stains all down the front, with my hair uncombed, what little hair I have left, totally unshaven, and I tell them, oh yeah, like I'm really good at this. Are they going to believe me? Maybe not. Maybe I have good communication skills, but because I made bad decisions in my grooming and my attire, like how I'm dressed, they probably don't believe me because I don't look like the candidate, right? So it sounds kind of dumb, and a lot of technical people, a lot of introverts, you probably don't place value or very much value on this kind of stuff. But the reality is when you're just meeting someone for the first time, this stuff really matters, right? It's all cosmetic, right? There's no substance there. It's all cosmetics. It's all just appearances, first impressions, right? But you would not believe how important that is when you're just meeting someone for the first time. They don't know you. They don't know that you're awesome. In order to determine who you are, they're going off what they see in front of them. And if they see someone that looks kind of bored and they don't seem very excited and they don't seem very confident, that's going to totally color their impression of you, right? So when you talk about soft skills, what soft skills do you need? You need to be able to communicate what you want to communicate. And it's not as simple as just saying some words. The whole package is taken into account. This is why I highly recommend, and I mean, this is not very original, but I highly recommend that if you're not doing it, you do mock interviews, like practice job interviews that you do with a friend or family member, just to sort of rehearse like how to do this. Concepts are relatively simple. Actually doing it is a little bit harder. It's like playing a musical instrument, I can learn the piano from a book. Okay, I got to put my finger here on this key, like that. You can learn that, right? But does that mean you're going to be able to play some fantastical piano piece like the first time? Of course not. There's a little bit different between the theory and the practice. So you got to rehearse. Practice makes perfect. And if you do that, you can get this. And if you have a friend or family member that you trust, that you actually trust their opinion, it's kind of a tall order sometimes, but with these people. But, if you trust them to give you objective feedback about yourself, that can be like an added bonus. You say like, how am I doing? And like, what did you think? And, if you have someone that is not out to lunch that actually can be honest with you, they may say stuff like, listen, I think you did good. Your answers were fine, as far as I could tell. But, you seem pissed off, like you really don't seem very friendly. I don't know if you can do something or work on that. I don't know, smile more or something, or just not be in such a, like, don't kind of bark out answers like in this kind of annoyed way. If you could just be a little bit more friendly or something, like I think that would really help. Something like that, right? That's invaluable to have that. That's why a lot of technical people, this is where they really stumble. It's not that this stuff is rocket science. It's that, in my experience, I believe it's because a lot of people like that, of which I'm one, they don't respect this stuff. They don't place value on it. And then it comes back to bite them in the ass. They're brilliant. They're very technically smart, and that's wonderful. But they might have a bit of a blind spot for this kind of stuff. So, so communication skills, persuasion skills, how to convince somebody of something, right? That is what you're there for. You're there to sell yourself. They're talking to like several candidates. On paper, all of them are technically qualified to do the job. Okay? Doesn't make any sense for them to bring in people that on paper just are not qualified. What would be the point of that? Even if you think they're wonderful in person, you still can't hire them because they're not qualified. everyone that they're talking to is technically qualified. So the tiebreaker is going to be other things than your technical skills. It usually comes down to what you're like as a person. Are you the type of person the boss would want to work with or not? You know, there's a lot of people out there that are technically brilliant that are terrible to work with. They're insufferable. Every time you go and deal with them, you get an argument on your hands. You know, it's never easy dealing with them. Or maybe they're brilliant, but you can't get them to actually turn in their work on time, or, you know, or follow rules, or, you know, stuff like this. Like, there's all kinds of issues. People that are technically brilliant, but they just can't collaborate with anybody. They're too, like, you know, set in their ways. They have to do it the way they want to do it, and they can't compromise on anything ever. That kills it. You know, like, you'd want to hire that person, but you just can't, because I'm sorry, you've got to be able to collaborate. You've got to insert yourself into this big machine. Like, we all have our roles to play. We all have to work together. And I'm sorry, if you just can't do that, it's just not going to work, you know? You know, so those are the soft skills. Soft skills are like what you're like. Do they want to work with you? And can you sell yourself and say, like, listen, you need to forget all those other people and hire me. And here's why, right? I can do this. I know this. And, you know, I have done this, you know, stuff like that. And they go, oh, okay. Hopefully that makes sense.